Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Stephen Koch, and he's a Chicago banker, and Manafort is actually accused of defrauding his bank as part of a $16 million loan. But Manafort was trying to get him a job as the Secretary of the Army in the Trump administration, and there was an email introduced into evidence from December 2016. Now, this is well after Paul Manafort had left the Trump campaign and after Donald Trump was elected president, and the email referenced the inaugural committee, so it became obvious they were talking about a president, and therefore Gates was able to testify that he did, in fact, work on the Trump campaign, and so did Paul Manafort. And that was the first mention of that fact at this trial. It's not clear that jurors even were aware of that. It certainly wasn't part of the opening statements or any of the testimony so far. But stepping back, so Gates is now done with direct examination. Defense lawyers may have begun cross-examination as we speak. And it was a really powerful day of testimony because it wasn't just Gates's word. Prosecution is not asking the jury just to believe Gates. They have a series of documents that are very compelling that include emails from Paul Manafort that seem to implicate both men in bank and tax fraud. For example, it's very clear that Manafort was instructing Gates to disguise income as loans. At another point, Manafort and Gates talk about overseas bank accounts that were never reported on Manafort's taxes, that were outside the reach of the IRS. And then by 2016, when their business had collapsed and they were more worried about getting money as opposed to evading taxes, they were overstating their balance sheets, and there was evidence introduced that Paul Manafort actually manipulated a balance sheet in a Microsoft Word document to make it look like the company was earning more money than it was to get a loan from a bank. So very powerful, devastating testimony buttressed by Rick Gates, the insider. Now we'll see if the defense can puncture it on cross-examination.
No, they can't puncture it. They'll say, oh, why should we believe you? You're a lying thief. You're as bad as our client. Oh, I didn't mean to say that. You know what I mean? But in the end, okay, so there's direct examination. Rick Gates testified yesterday under direct examination that Paul Manafort, had wire transfers coming from the Bank of Cyprus, that he also stole from Paul Manafort. He couldn't even remember how much money he stole. They're stealing from each other. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. But Gates understood early on that he was only 46 years old and didn't want to spend the rest of his life in prison, so he copped a plea, okay? And so he is now protected. He's, a cooperating witness. He pled to a lesser crime than the crimes he the crimes he outlined yesterday, backed up by financial transactions, bank documents, emails, all kinds of paper. That doesn't, the paper's recollection does not change. Let's put it that way. Rudy says, my client's recollection keeps changing. Well, paper doesn't change, and videotape doesn't change its recollection, nor do facts evolve after the facts are documented on paper that, let's say, a transfer from the Bank of Cyprus went to Paul Manafort and Rick Gates, skimmed some off the top. So you got Rick Gates sitting there yesterday admitting to all the crimes, just like Henry Hill did. Just like Henry Hill did when, Jimmy was on trial, right? And they're 20 feet apart. They're 20 feet apart. And he's pointing at him. He's pointing at him going, yeah, he did this and he did that and he did this and he did that. And so now, of course, the defense is going to try and say, why should we believe you? You're a thief, too. You're a corrupt little, monkey is what you are. And you just danced to the tune and you lived off Paul Manafort and he was an honest businessman and you leached onto him and then you stole from him. It's because, and then after the defense gets, done trying to bloody him up a little bit, there will be redirect. The prosecution will have another shot. And there's only one question that I would ask as the prosecutor at that point, and that would be, Mr. Gates, do you have a deal? Do you have an immunity deal so that you could tell the jury all the crimes you committed because you pleaded to a lesser crime? You can do that and not face life in prison. Isn't that true? Yes, that's true. And if you lie on the stand, what is the only condition What is the only thing that you could do at this point to make that deal go away and for your sworn testimony to be used against you to put you in jail for the rest of your life? Well, the deal requires I tell the truth on the stand, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, or else I lose my deal and I could be in a cell with Paulie over there. You see, and that makes it all clear for the jury. Yeah, it sort of, clarifies the picture. So for me, whatever Gates did, obviously they're disgusting, and how they got this close to the president is something everybody ought to take note of, because the truth of the matter is the president likes sullied people. He likes compromised people. He likes people with no conscience, no principles, with just a love of money. He likes the most greedy, voracious, conscienceless people around him to make him feel at home. Because that's who the president is. And we know this because the president served up his son, in a tweet over the weekend. Oh, yeah, the meeting was to get dirt on the Democrat. The meeting was with Russians, and it was to get dirt on Hillary Clinton. And my son was there, but I wasn't. I didn't know about it. He literally served Junior up on a silver platter with that tweet. So that's who Donald Trump is. And everyone he surrounded himself with, from Wilbur Ross, who nobody wants to talk about. It's so weird because the testimony in the Manna Fort trial, obviously there's no cameras in the courtroom. And obviously the reporters who are allowed in the courtroom are not allowed to bring any recording devices of any kind, no cell phones, no, they can't record anything, no tape recorders, nothing. And so they're doing it the old-fashioned way. They're taking notes, and then they're running out of the courtroom, and they're reporting as soon as there's testimony that is newsworthy. And that's the only way we can, deal with this. Meanwhile, OJ is on trial, Menendez brothers on trial, Court TV, but a real trial having to do with the campaign manager for the president of the United States and his deputy campaign manager that touches on our current Commerce Secretary, Wilbur Ross, and his role as the vice president of the Bank of Cyprus, in partnership with a Russian oligarch named Viktor Vekselberg, who is under sanctions by the United States and just came up in a courtroom by way of Rick Gates testifying about these bank transfers from Cyprus. It was Cyprus, and every bit of testimony was like Cyprus. It was just like, oh my God, Cyprus. We're not allowed to watch that. That we can't see. There's no right, for the public, or need to know. There's no need to know for the. We have to get this, from secondhand and a day late. It's so unbelievable. So today we realized that there was testimony that was given by Rick Gates that says that the Trump campaign chair, Paul Manafort, the chairman of the Trump presidential, hardly even know him. I don't even know him. He worked for me for a very, very, very short time.
And Paul Manafort has done an amazing job. He's here someplace. Where's Paul? Paul Manafort. Oh, good. You made it. Paul Manafort has done a fantastic job.
There's Hope Hicks.
And all of Paul's people. Paul brought on a staff. So we have a great group of people. And we have a group of people that really wants to win and I think knows how to win. And we've all sort of been winning all our lives. This group of people in front of me, I know so many of you, we've been winning all our lives.
Oh, he knows so many of them. They've been winning all their lives together. They've been winning all. But he hardly even knows them now. DeAnti's going to say, Trump Jr. is not really his kid. This is just amazing. Okay. So today there was testimony from Rick Gates that said that Manafort promised a Chicago banker a job in the administration in return for a $16 million loan, real estate loan. This guy's name is Stephen Koch, and he wanted to be named Secretary of the Army, and he called military officials for preparatory briefings. He actually called military officials, and he was not ultimately given the position with the Department of the Army, but that he was even being considered as Secretary of the Army, and for a highly sensitive national security position with the Trump campaign, which eventually, the high security position went to Michael Flynn, who also pleaded guilty, to Russian sanction, quid pro quos and Turkish nuclear plants. And it's just so sick. But that there was a quid pro quo with Mr. Manafort, and that this guy, Stephen Koch, actually made the loans. He did. He made the loans to Manafort. He made 3 loans. One was in December of 2016. One was in January of 2017. And these loans came from a bank called Federal Savings Bank in Chicago, small bank. Koch was president of the bank at the time. And Manafort needed loans because he was dead broke. And he needed the loans for his New York apartment, his Virginia house, and his house out in the Hamptons. Now, what's interesting about these loans is that the bank officials, the people who worked at this little bank, they were very suspect because they were humongous loans for a guy who wasn't a military guy, which was their wheelhouse, who had houses in the Hamptons and an apartment, luxury apartments in New York, and a luxury house in Virginia. And they were kicking up a storm over at the bank going, why are you doing this? This represents such a great big chunk of all of our total deposits. This just doesn't make sense. Turns out that one of the employees was questioned by Robert Mueller and was given immunity because they told Mueller, when Mueller asked them, why did you make these loans, that they felt pressure. And they knew that these were fraudulent loans, but they felt pressure to make the loans. And so now there's, I believe, 2 employees from the bank who also have been cooperating with Mueller and have told Mueller that this guy, Koch, was pressured by Manafort in a quid pro quo situation, that Koch was put on the president's economic advisory board. There are emails. The emails exist, and here they are. The first email the prosecutors listed in their exhibit with Koch's name on it is July 28th, 2016. It's between Koch, this other employee named Rossio, and maybe others about a revised portfolio summary. Then on August 3rd, 2016, there was a subject line on an email from this guy, Rossio, to Manafort that said, need S. Koch resume. Following day, August 4th, 2016, the subject line from Manafort to Koch said, S. Koch professional bio. On August 5th, 2016, the Trump campaign announced that Stephen Koch was going to be joining the Trump Economic Advisory Team. 2 of the employees who felt pressured to make these loans to Paul Manafort are testifying in this trial. They're on the witness list. So this is just the beginning of witnesses who will testify that during the time Manafort was on the Trump campaign, quid pro quos using Trump. Now, what's so interesting is if Paul Manafort was dead broke, as everybody has testified to, his accountant testified, his bookkeeper testified. Now, they've all gotten immunity because they committed crimes too. That's how dirty, Manafort's entire circle of people are. And that's how dirty Trump's entire circle of people are. But they committed crimes too. And everybody's testifying he was dead broke. And he needed money. So why does he take an unpaid position in the Trump campaign? Perhaps he thought he could leverage it with guys that he owed $10 million to, like Oleg Deripaska, right? Who was suing him for $10 million for performance of a contract. And there's emails from Manafort to Oleg saying, read the newspaper. Read the newspaper. You can see I'm getting Trump to praise Russia. You can see I'm getting Trump to do everything we dreamt of him doing, which I believe has everything to do with the fact that when Manafort was working for Yanukovych and Manafort started meeting all these Russian oligarchs, Manafort understood that he could give a plan to these Russian oligarchs to just completely wipe out democracy, not just in Ukraine, where it had taken hold, but also in America, and that Deripaska and others paid Paul Manafort for a plan, and the plan included recruiting Donald Trump. Go to RandiRhoads.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.